Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. This is Hassani. Good to have you all with us. This is Friday, and you know what that means. It is Ask the Experts. That's right. Any question that you have, this is your day. Today is all about you. So whether you're dating, in a committed courtship, engaged, married, maybe you're separated, maybe you're on the verge of divorce, maybe it's complicated, this is the time for you to get your question in. So whether it's about sex or communication, or whether I should stay or go, or you just found out about an affair, we're here to be all things to all people today. So listen, post your question, get it in. But before we do that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break so you can find out more about what we have going on, and we'll get right back to you. Stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. You're watching Ask the Experts. Remember, this is Friday, so it's an opportunity for you to ask your questions. I just got a question offline that I'm going to re-articulate. What do you do when you're in the recovery process, but you have problems that are still lingering? Well, guess what? You probably had problems before you discovered any type of betrayal, and so you're going to have problems thereafter. So problems are a part of life, but it's how you deal with it, right? I think what happens is there's a challenge. When you've experienced any type of betrayal, sometimes we cluster together all of these problems into one huge ball and not realizing that we have to learn how to separate the two. So we like to tell people all the time that you have affair specific issues, and then you have your marital specific issues, and separating the two is important because as you go through the recovery process, if you are dealing with marital issues that somehow you've made it affair issues, you may feel as if you're not making the progress that needs to be made in the period of time to make you a believer that this is actually working. So it's important that you embrace what we always talk about, and what is that? Having a weekly workday meeting where you get to have conversations and unpack all that is happening in the relationship. Because truth be told, I'm not saying that the only time that you can communicate about anything is in a workday, but the workday ensures that there is consistency in your conversations. Because when you're having a workday, you're showing up as the best version of yourself. There are ground rules that you are following, right? And you have a specific issue that you're attacking, and you're solution oriented in your process. And by doing it in that fashion, you're able to address legitimate concerns. So one of the things we tell people all the time is throughout the course of the week, if you're experiencing challenges and you feel like it's not the best time to talk because your spouse may not be open, or you're just caught up in the busyness of life, you've got work, you've got ministry, you've got kids, you've got all these other things, write it down and prepare for that conversation in the workday. When you have your workday, what would really set it up for success is letting your spouse know ahead of time what you desire to talk about. So it gives them time to think it through, to process it, to come up with their own perspective, to possibly have some solutions, so that when you're engaging in it, you can have something that's more effective. Now, once again, I'm not saying that the only time you talk is in the workday. You should get to a place where things are getting better. You're able to engage in conversation throughout the course of the week. And so when situations do happen, yes, you should be able to talk about it and unpack it. And if you're using the tools that we have given you at Couples Academy, it makes it a lot easier. Void of the tools, there is a challenge. So if you are a couple who has gone through counseling and your counselor has provided you with tools, use them. If you don't have any, if you've never gone to counseling and it seems that every time you have a conversation and talk, things always go the wrong direction, maybe it's time to bring a third party in. And so that's why all you need to do, you see that number at the bottom of the screen? That's the 678-200-8996. Just text us, reach out to us, let us set up a free discovery call, or go to the website. Let's find out about some options of how we can help you, because the issues that you currently have don't have to be the issues that you remain with in your relationship. Things should be getting better over a period of time. And so your effort, your diligence, your tenacity, your willingness to do whatever it takes will get you there. All right, here's another question. How do you get past the fact that your H did intimate stuff with the AP? Husband, I would imagine. How do you get past the fact that your husband did intimate stuff with the affair partner that he won't do with you? 2 years and I still can't understand why it's not important to him. That's a phenomenal question. Okay, so I can give you a general answer to that. I don't know the complexities of your relational dynamic or the personality makeup, but there's this thing called the dangerous partner profile. Right? And the dangerous partner profile is someone who you would have an instant attraction for, but would never be someone you would ever select to be in a committed long-term relationship. So they're great for an affair, but wrong for a long-time marital type of commitment. And so there are 8 components of this dangerous partner profile of what we find attractive. And interestingly enough, none of these 8 have to do with anything physical. Typically the question is, well, was she prettier than me? And was he more handsome than me? And did they have a better body than me? All these different physical attributes, which are not even on the list. Usually there are other dynamics that bring about this highly intensified attraction and connection. And so one of the components is what we call attachment styles, okay? There are attachment styles or personality styles. And so, for instance, I'll give you an example, and I'm taking the long path to get to the answer. Let's just say you are married to someone who is very strong in their personality, and it creates conflict. And that relational dynamic just seems to be a struggle. And you meet somebody who's more kind and more laid back and more accommodating to your personality. That becomes attractive, right? So you're able to be with this other person what you're not able to be necessarily with your spouse the way things currently are. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So it's not about the other person being better. It's about the other person being different than. Okay, get that. Now, let's talk sex. You said maybe there's certain things that your spouse is willing to do with the affair partner that they're not willing to do with you. One of the things that makes this betrayal so hurtful. And we call it like death by 1,000 cuts. You may find a person doing with an affair partner what they will not do in a marital relationship. So maybe in the marriage, your spouse was more of the accommodator, right? But in the affair, they were more of the initiator, right? Because of whatever dynamic existed between them. This is why it's difficult to compare affair sex with marital sex, because in affair sex, you got to keep in mind that this is someone that you don't do life with, you don't pay bills with, you don't raise kids with, you don't make major decisions with. You're not impacted by their thoughts and their opinions. You're giving each other a portion of who you are, not all of who you are. So when all you have between the two of you is sexual encounters or playful conversations and none of the other things that come along with life, it's a different dynamic. There's an intensity, there's a draw, there's an attraction, there's a freedom to do with another person what you typically wouldn't do with your partner. And so, the question then becomes, when we look at the sexual relationship that you've had with your spouse, what does that look like? You got to understand, we can have a topic on this for literally weeks, because there's different sexual personality styles. Like there's something called the erotic blueprint. And the erotic blueprint will identify 5 different sexual styles that will either allow couples to be compatible or they express certain incompatibilities which don't work. We have found that in a long-term relationship, while sex was very high and it was very frequent in the beginning, normalcy sets in and people change. So the things that I used to do, I don't do anymore. The things that I used to like, I don't like anymore. We don't really work well in these particular spaces. I've asked for this particular thing, but it hasn't been given. And I can easily find it in these affair partners because there's a willingness to do more than what you would do in your committed relationship. So there are a number of different things that we can point to. That's why it's kind of hard to answer your specific question. So I'm speaking in a general way to give you something to hold on to. But to take a deeper dive, I would highly recommend and encourage that you talk to someone who kind of specializes in that. We have a sex coach on our team that could really get into the weeds of your situation, because listen, when an affair has occurred and you're trying to restore the relationship, sexual intimacy is a major component of what needs to be worked on. Keep in mind, there are 5 big challenges that all couples have: communication, finances, parenting, in-laws, and sex. And sex is one of those things that many of us, we love to do, but we don't like to talk about. Because when we talk about it, it reveals insecurities and inadequacies and fears and all types of things. And the more free you are engaging in conversation, you'd be surprised how you can really transform your sexual relationship. Last point I'll say on this. I know many couples because I counsel them. They both have a desire to be with each other, and they both have a desire to explore things with each other, but there's an internal resistance that they have to stepping into that space for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes it's fears and insecurities that they're carrying within themselves. Sometimes it's a relational sexual past that they're looking at, and I've attempted to do that before and it didn't work, so I just stopped asking and I just stopped approaching. And there are many assumptions that are being made because of things that didn't quite work out well one particular time, and so now we've principalized it and said, well, it didn't work that time, I guess there's no point in pursuing that, but that desire is still there, so unfortunately you seek it out in someone else. So this is why we say communication is the most important component that you can have in a relationship, because if you can truly address these sensitive issues, you'll be surprised the level of alignment that you may have in terms of what you actually desire. So hopefully that gives you some insight on how to address that particular issue. All right. I don't have my glasses on. I'm going to do the best I can. Here's another question. Is having an affair weighed against a real marriage make the having affair appear more attractive? Let me reread that. Is having an affair weighed against a real marriage make the having affair appear more attractive? I'm going to do my best. I just read what you say. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to do the best I can. So are you talking about when you compare an affair to a marriage, is an affair more attractive? It is more attractive. Of course it is. That's the draw, and that's the challenge with it. And this is why you can't compare it. Because think about it. Forget affairs, forget that for a second. Whenever you enter into any type of new relationship, there's two things that really drive the initiation of that relationship: physical attraction, emotional desirability. So as long as you look good and you make me feel good, then it's all good, right? Once again, it's new, it's exciting, you're getting to know, there's a curiosity, there's a desire to connect with someone who you're not familiar with. So that drives or creates the intensity of that engagement versus someone who I'm in a committed relationship with. We've been together for 20 years. We have children. We've had highs and lows. We've had challenges. Yes, there was a high emotional intensity in the very beginning, as all relationships have, but over the course of time, that emotionalized type of love transitions into a more mature love. When you read the book, The 5 Love Languages, it talks about how the in-love feeling generally lasts for about 2 years before it transitions into a more mature phileo type of love. And then when you experience challenges and setbacks and hardships that you've overcome, that's when you've stepped into or tapped into that agape unconditional love. And so it's a different type of thing. In fact, this high intensity isn't designed to last forever. Imagine being still married for 20 years and you have this high emotional intensity, because when you had it in the beginning of the relationship, you would sacrifice friends. You're like, where are you? I'm in a relationship. Family don't know where you are. Like the level of responsibility that you had in the very beginning, you didn't have, because it was all about that person. You were consumed with that person. You wanted to spend every waking minute with that person. You would sacrifice sleep. You would sacrifice anything to be with that person. That's not sustainable, because you have to live life. It's got to mature. It's got to develop. That's why when we have affairs, that same intensity usually is at the beginning of that relationship. And most affairs don't last that long. But even when they do, it kind of tapers off in terms of that emotional high. So you got to understand that when you compare the two, it's a false comparison. It's an unfair comparison. You can't do it, because if you do it, you're looking through the wrong lenses. And 9 times out of 10, I say 9 times because you can't speak in absolutes, if that affair partner becomes your primary partner and now you've entered into a committed relationship with them, the same normalcy you have in your current relationship, you'll have in that. And that's the trick. You think somehow being with this person is just better, is richer, is more fulfilling, and this can be sustained for the rest of our lives. And it doesn't. The very nature of commitment doesn't allow it to be that way. That's why you have to be intentional to speak each other's love language, to meet each other's emotional needs, to do the best you can with intention to keep that emotion high. So what was natural and what was automatic and what was instinctual in the beginning has to become purposeful and intentional and consistent once you've entered into a long-lasting relationship. So I hope that was your question, and I hope I answered it. All right. That does make a lot of sense. I just wanted all of the intimacy, sexual and otherwise. I don't want to just be the life partner and friend. We are in counseling. This is the response to the question about the spouse who said, he was doing things with other people that he didn't do with me. I'm glad that you're getting counseling, and I pray that it's working for you. And if you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And sometimes having conversations around sex can be uncomfortable. And I think that if you both are open to how you've shown up in the relationship, because a lot of times when a betrayal happens, the betrayed spouse says, everything's your fault. It's 100% your fault. If you weren't. But the reality is both of you have contributed something to the relationship that created a vulnerability in the area of your sexuality. And so having honest conversations about that will allow you to find healing in that space. All right, here's another question. Good morning. Long time no see. I've been doing some soul searching. Unfortunately, my husband and I are separated for 3 years now. I've tried everything to get him back. However, he's done with me. I'm still hoping my husband will see my worth. He's dating other women. I can't date anyone because I'm still married to him. I feel like I'm cheating. Yeah. Well, let me just give you some hope. I think it was about a year ago. I had a couple here who had been separated for 5 years. They came back to do a private marriage intensive to restore their marriage. They're thriving today. There was another couple about 8 months ago. They had been separated for 3 years, and they came back to restore their marriage. So there are many examples of people who are in your situation who are able to turn things around. If obviously he's dating other people and not interested and working on the relationship, my question is, well, number one, why are you still married? Is it because you refuse to divorce because of biblical faith reasons? Is it because financially it doesn't make sense? Is it because he wants to have his cake and eat it too? So to be legally divorced now puts a financial responsibility on him that he doesn't want. Why are you not divorced? And while you are still married, are you married because you have hope that things can turn around? Is he still holding on to the marriage because there's some benefit to him, though he's with another person? While you're in this in-between state, there's two things you can do. Number one, you can seek guidance from a specialist that can kind of help you figure things out and navigate things. But you can always pray. That's number two, because there's power in prayer. And we've seen some miraculous things happen in people's lives when they invited God into their situation. And so I have more questions for you than answers, because every situation is uniquely different. But those are the two things that I would advise you to do. But I just want to let you know that even though everybody may be looking at you, calling you crazy, this dude is out here dating other people, you've been separated, living in two different homes for all this time, we've seen things happen. That's why that's why you got to be careful who you give your ear to. Because if you listen to the wrong one, they will give you the wrong advice. You remember Tyrese, the actor? Tyrese, the actor, he was in Transformers, all these other movies. He was married for a couple years and recently got a divorce about a year ago. And his wife was on a podcast, and she herself said, you know what? When we were going through, the problem was I was listening to the wrong people. And the wrong people gave me the wrong advice, which fueled my decision to divorce. And if I didn't have those people in my life, I would probably still be married right now. And so this is why it's critically important what environment you place yourself in, who you're talking to, and who's speaking life or death into your situation. So if you need more help and guidance, please reach out to us. All right, another question. My UW. What is a UW? A UW? I don't know what that is. My UW is not intentional. Unfaithful wife? Thank you. All right. My unfaithful wife? Guys, I'm archaic. I don't do you gotta spell these words out. I don't know what that stuff means. My unfaithful wife is not intentional and is not consistent with our recovery work. Her therapist fired her for this. Wow. What boundaries can be set when I'm doing my work but still will not do it consistently? That's a great question. So here's the deal. There's three types of couples we work with. Couple number one, they both want the marriage. Couple number two, one wants it, one's unsure. Couple number three, one wants it, one does not. And oftentimes that plays out in terms of one's willingness to do the necessary work. And unfortunately, for many couples, one may want it more than the other. One may have more energy and effort towards the recovery process than the other. And so sometimes there's very little motivation, there's very little consistency, their heart, their mind is not in it. So your question is, what boundaries can you put in place? It's interesting, we were just talking about this in our Foundry group yesterday, that when you have a spouse that's not on the same page, you have to put boundaries in place. And boundaries that you put in place is not to control the other person. The boundaries that you put in place is to control yourself. To in essence, establish rules about what you're willing to deal with, what you're willing to put up with, and what you won't. So I would recommend two books. Number one, Boundaries by Henry Cloud. And number two, Boundaries in Marriage. Actually, he wrote another book called Safe People, okay, by Henry McLeod, I believe it is. So you can find those on Amazon. And he actually goes through the details of how you can establish these healthy boundaries while still holding on to the marriage that you want to restore. The last point I would say is it's important for you to identify what your spouse's motivation is. Now, I've said this continually. Let's just flip it for a second. A lot of times women want counseling much earlier than men. And women are kicking and screaming. He doesn't want to show up and he doesn't want to. And I've told them that men and women are motivated by two completely different things. And what motivates you may not motivate her. So it may help for you to really take some time to assess who your spouse is and to find out the source of their motivation. Because if you tap into that motivation, there's a high probability that they will increase their willingness, their effort, their consistency, the work that's needed to not only heal themselves, but restore the relationship. Okay. So that would be my advice to you. Sometimes I don't like this practitioner. Sometimes I don't like the work that we're necessarily doing. It seems very one-sided. It's not, you got to take time to kind of unpack it and explore it a little bit, and find a place where the both of you are being served and the both of you are being met. I think that also plays into it. And amongst a number of other factors. So hopefully that gives you some advice. If you need a little bit more, reach out to us and let's see what we can do for you. All right, here's another question. How can you move forward with recovery in a space if your significant other's drive is centered around, I owe it to you to be all in versus being fully committed to me? Obligation versus commitment. Okay. So that's a good question. Sometimes a person's feelings has to catch up with their decisions. So for instance, some people have made a decision to stay, but they're doing it for all of the right reasons. They're doing it because of the kids. They're doing it because of, financially right now, it doesn't make sense to go in another direction. They're doing it because that's what the Bible instructs me to do. They're doing it for all of these other reasons that have nothing to do with you, right? And so couples come to us in situations where it just doesn't make sense to leave. And I say, thank God for all those situations that make it almost impossible or inconvenient to leave. Because if those are the reasons why they're staying now, great. We found something, we've created some stickability, right? We created something that ties and binds you two together. And hopefully in the process, their heart will change, their desire will change. And we've seen this. So for those who said, I'm only around because these kids are so young and I can't do it on my own and I don't want a poor example of a broken family and that's why I'm staying, I'll take that all day long. And that's just one reason, right? There's an incalculable number of reasons, but I'll take that all day long because it gives us time and space to work on heart and mind and to work on the relational dynamic. And what we have found is that in a process, in time, that natural connection you once had is restored. That natural desire that you once had is restored. That passion and intensity and willingness to do it for the right reasons is restored. So sometimes feelings have to catch up with the decision to do the right thing. So I hope that's making sense for you. Listen, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Hope this is helping. We got a little bit more time. Post your questions in. We'll be right back. That means we got to go to a commercial, Bobby. You want to click on a commercial? Where you at? All right, I'll go and do it. Stay right there.
Couples Academy is committed to serving couples around the world by reaching beyond cultural lines and language barriers. We are proud to announce that we now serve the Spanish-speaking community. So whether you're here in the United States or abroad, Couples Academy has a place for you.
Couples Academy se compromete a servir parejas de todo el mundo, superando las fronteras culturales y las barreras del idioma. Ahora, estamos orgullosos de anunciar que servimos a la comunidad de habla hispana. Entonces, ya sea que estés aquí en los Estados Unidos o en el extranjero, Couples Academy está aquí para servirle.
That's like at a 10, they hear it at a 6. If I'm I'm not really exaggerated. Sometimes I could be really exaggerated, and I'll come back and show you what I mean.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. I hope that was helpful. These questions are good questions. These are the things that people are battling with and struggling with on a daily and consistent basis. If there are no more questions, what I would encourage you to do is sit down, have a conversation with your spouse, right? Sometimes it's good to watch the show with your spouse, because when they're hearing this type of information from you, they're not open, they're not receptive, they shut you down. It may be good information, but it's coming from the wrong person, at least at that time. They've tuned a deaf ear to you. But when you can sit down together and you can watch a show like this or read a book together or have some other source sharing a message that may be similar to what you've always told them, they're more open and receptive because they don't feel like that person has an agenda. Does that make sense? And so this is why the counseling process is critically necessary, because, and I've seen it, I've been in counseling sessions where I'm giving advice and the spouse is just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the spouse is looking at him like, I've been telling you that for the last 10 years. And now are mad at their spouse because they're finally getting something and willing to receive information from another person that they have been articulating for a long time. And so this is why a third person who has skills and knowledge and insight and a willingness to guide you through a process is the best thing that you could ever do. We're always going to recommend counseling and coaching, but it's about going to the right one. And so it doesn't make sense that if you have a Ford Taurus and your car breaks down, you take it to a Mercedes of repair shop. That a Ford and a Mercedes, they're not the same vehicle. So the mechanics are trained to work on special types of vehicles. And so when you take your situation, you've been in an affair, you've had betrayal, you've had addiction issues, and you go to a general practitioner, it doesn't make sense. When you go to your family doctor and you say, Doc, I've got a backache, it is his or her responsibility to send you where? To a chiropractor. They specialize in that part of the body. So why would you take a very sensitive issue that could get worse to someone who doesn't specialize in what you need? And so we here at Couples Academy, we are the home of what? Affair recovery and divorce prevention. And if that is where you find yourself, this is the place where you need to be to get the medicine that you need to turn your situation around. So listen, guys, hope you have an amazing day. Hope you have an amazing weekend. Have a conversation with your spouse. Listen, reach out to us, set up a discovery call. Let's see what we can do to turn your situation around. But until then, we'll see you on Monday for another great episode. Take care.